Next up in Unit 4 is solving by substitution. This is probably the most confusing methods, and it's really not that hard. It's just there's one little part where it gets a little confusing, and it could completely mess it up if you're not careful. So I'm going to make sure that when I explain, I really point out this part that is often missed. So substitution, I'm going to read through the steps before we get going. Step 1, we're going to solve one of the equations for x or y. That means we want at least one of our equations to say x equals or y equals. Sometimes your problem already has this. Sometimes it's easier to get x or y. You just kind of have to look at it to figure it out. Then, step 2, we're going to take, all right, whichever one is y equals, we're going to take that and chug it in to the other one. We're going to plug it in, we're going to substitute it into the other equation. And when that happens, that means we're only going to be left with one variable, which we can then solve. And we get that one variable, we solve for it, we have to plug it back in to find the other one. So let's start with number 1, and I'm going to start out a little easier. In number 1, I already actually have both of them set to y equals. So this is nice. We don't have to do anything for step 1. So I'm going to I can pick whichever one I want. And I'm going to take that one. I'm going to highlight it. I recommend you drawing a box around it or something. And I'm going to plug it. I'm going to find the y in my other equation. And there's my y. I'm going to plug that in for the other y. And so it's going to look like this. Negative 8 equals negative 8x plus 8. And then I'm going to solve. So we're going to see, we want to get x by itself. So subtract 8 from both sides. That's negative 16 equals negative 8x. And then I divide both sides by negative 8. And we get 2 equals x. So now, so that was, let's see, step 3. So we finished step 3 there. Step 4 would be, okay, I'm going to take this 2 and plug it back in to help me find y. But this is one of the easiest questions because it already flat out told you what y is. It said y is negative 8. So you don't even have to do anything else. Our answer, we have x equals 2, y equals negative 8, but I want you to put that as a point. So it's the point 2, negative 8. All right. Next up, we're going to move to number 2. Again, both of these already has y equals. But neither one of them is just y equals a number. So it's not as easy, but it's pretty easy. They're already y equals. So I'm going to take one of them and highlight it. It doesn't matter which one. And then I'm going to find the y in the other equation. So here it is. So I'm going to take what's highlighted and plug it in for y. So it's going to become 2x plus 17 equals negative 3x minus 8. And then we solve. So I'm going to add 3x to both sides. That gives me 5x plus 17 equals -8. And then I'm going to subtract 17 from both sides to get 5x equals -8 minus 17 is -25. And then we divide by 5 to get x equals -5. So I have my x. Now I have to find the y. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that -5 and I can pick either equation that I want. Either of these original ones. Doesn't matter. So let's just pick the first one. And I'm going to replace the x with -5 because I just found that x is -5. So I'm going to substitute it in. So -10 plus 17 is 7. So my x is -5, my y is 7. And that's the solution. Let's look at number 3. So if I look back at my steps, step 1 said, all right, get one of the variables by itself, and look, I already have that. So I'm going to highlight this one, and then I'm going to find the y in the other equation. The reason I'm finding y is because it's y equals. If it was x equals, I would look for the x, but it's y equals, so I'm going to look for the y, and then I'm going to plug that in for that y. So I'm replacing this y. So I substituted one of that equation into the other one. And then I'm going to solve. So first I want to distribute. Then I can combine my like terms. Then I add 26 to both sides. And then I divide by -8. And that gives me x equals -3. So I found the x. Now I need to find the y. And I can pick either of these original equations, but this first one that I have highlighted, that's going to be the easier one because it's y equals. So it'll just be pretty easy. You can pretty much just plug it into your calculator. So y equals -6. Now I know that x is -3 minus 13. So this would be 18 minus 13, which is 5. So my solution is -3, 5. Number 4. Now we're getting to some examples where none of them have a y by itself. So we're going to look at these two to try to decide which one I want to work with. And if I look at them, the first one has just a plain y here. You want to try to avoid fractions if you possibly can. So if I change this first one, if I want to change that one to get y by itself, all that I have to do is add the 3x to both sides. And that gives me y equals 3x minus 13. So that one was pretty easy to do, and it didn't have any fractions involved. So that's the one that I'm going to use. So I'm going to highlight this equation just like I've been doing, and then I'm going to find the y in the other equation. So let's go back to the other one and find the y. And so I'm going to plug that in. So I've changed one equation and then plugged or substituted that in to the other equation. Right, and then I'm going to distribute. Combine like terms. Then I'm going to add 104 to both sides. And then if I divide both sides by 31, we get x equals 4. Now you have a few options of where you can plug this 4 in. I will tell you that it's always easiest to plug it into the one that has x or y by itself, which is the one that I have highlighted here, and we definitely can use that one. So that's the one I'm going to use, y equals 3, I'm going to plug in a 4 minus 13. You can use either of these original ones or any one that you may have altered to get the x or the y by itself. Any 3 will work. This becomes 12 minus 13, which is -1. So my solution is the point 4, -1. So I want you to try number 5. Try to test yourself by pausing the video and doing it by yourself. All right, so the start of number 5, you should have caught on that none of them have x equals or y equals. So we're gonna have to pick one to work with. And you kind of could go either way here. So keep in mind that what you did might look different than what I did. What's important is that you got the same final answer. So I'm going to work with the first one. -3x minus 3y equals -9. And really, either one of these, I could get the x by itself or the y by itself. I'm going to guess that most of you got the y by itself, so that's the way I'm going to go. So I'm going to add 3x to both sides. And divide by -3. So we get y equals negative, and really I didn't need to put that 1 there, negative x plus 3. So that's the one that I'm going to highlight because that's the one that has the y by itself. And then I'm going to look at the other equation, and I'm going to find the y, and I'm going to plug it in. (6x plus 2 negative x plus 3 equals 6. So remember, whichever equation that you changed, you plug into the other one. So then I'm going to distribute to get 6x minus 2x plus 6 equals 6. So it would be 4x plus 6 equals 6. Then I subtract 6 from both sides, so we get 4x equals 0. And if we divide by 4, we get x equals 0. So that's the x value. The y value, I'm going to plug this 0 in. I could pick either one of these, or I could pick this one. I'm going to choose to pick the one that's highlighted. That's going to be the easiest. And we get y equals 3. So you may have chose a different route, which is totally fine. What's important is that you got the same final answer. All right, number 6, the last one. So on this one, I'm going to look, and if I look at the first equation, and if I want to get either x or y by itself, keep in mind that we're going to end up dividing by 7 or dividing by 8. And either way I do that, I'm going to end up with fractions or decimals. So I don't want to pick that one. The bottom one, if I work with the bottom one, it will be easy to get the x by itself. So this time I'm going to be working a little different, so pay attention. The x will be easy. So if I subtract, this time I'm going to subtract 3y get negative x equals negative 3y minus 14. And then I can divide by -1. And that gives me x equals 3y plus 14. So let's highlight this. Here's where we have to do it a little differently. Instead of finding the y in the other equation, I'm finding the x in the other equation, because that's the one that I have x equals. So I'm going to plug in for x. If you plug in and you have an x and a y still in this equation, then you know you plugged it in wrong. The whole point of this is just to get down to one variable. So that's kind of a hint for when you're working on this. If you're getting confused because you have an x and a y still, you know you messed up. All right, so I'm going to distribute 21y plus 98 minus 8y equals 20. Then I can combine my like terms to get 13y plus 98 equals 20. Then I'm going to subtract 98 from both sides. 13y equals negative 78. Then if I divide by 13, I get y equals negative 6. So that's my y. Now I need to plug back in to find the x. So we have x equals negative 4. And if we put those back together for our solution, our point is negative 4, negative 6. Remember, the x value always goes first.